Hello, everybody, my space friends. Welcome to another episode of the Citizen Central podcast. Once a month, good old times. Wait, are we looping over here? What is going on there? Once a month, lovely little podcast where we get some content creators and generally YouTube folks from Star Citizen around in a little roundtable format. Have a little talk. Today we've got XeroState, Dedleader, Myre, three streamers from different areas of the game, honestly, and three folks who I've talked to. I think Dedleader, we actually you were on the previous episode. We've talked quite a bit, but XeroState and Myre, we haven't gotten to talk too much, so I'm looking forward to getting a chance to read your thoughts today. How are you all doing?
Doing good, thanks.
Happy to have you all on today. I think this is episode 10. I want to say this is episode 10, and it's been a good time so far. It might seem a little weird how my camera, for anybody who's watching, my camera is like slowly sloping off the side of the screen. Just ignore that. All right, we make what needs to work. Before we jump into it today, I know who you all are, and our viewers might know who you all are, but somebody's got to be in here for the first time. So I'd like to introduce everybody to the crowd. XeroState, could you start us off? Let people know kind of what you do, where you're coming from for this show.
Yeah. So I stream Star Citizen way more than is probably healthy, and just really got into the game. I mean, like a decade ago, and loved it ever since. Put it down for a while, came back. Been super into the game for the last 3 years, and yeah, I guess you can find me at Twitch.
Cool. Twitch.tv/XeroState.
Yep.
Or as some I've heard call Mr. State.
Some, yeah.
Mr. State.
Dedleader, my friend. Who are you?
My name is Mr. Dedleader, and I do Star Citizen YouTube. I do a lot of videos and sort of kind of salvage. I run a salvage org called the Skull Scrapers, and yeah, I just like to kind of.
Wait, that's a salvage org?
Yeah,
that sounds a little violent for salvage.
Well, yeah, that's our idea. Is we want to be able to strike fear in people. So the law we got attached is that we're all people that were previous victims of pirates, and so we won't be victims again. And so we maintain on being able to defend ourselves while salvaging.
Both ship and Skull Scrapers then.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. Sorry, everybody who's watching the video, just destroyed the background for a second there.
But yeah, I just kind of do weird. I don't know. I like to just play around with the game and make my own fun, really, more than anything.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed. I think it was a video that ended up leading to us getting on a podcast episode together. Was the one you did, fishing at Orison.
Fishing one. Yeah.
Never knew that Star Citizen could go toe to toe with Stardew Valley. Good to see them. Myre, my friend, tell the people where you come from.
Hi, my name is Myre. I'm a voice actor and streamer here on Twitch TV, and not on. I do have a YouTube channel, actually. I was going to say, and not on YouTube, which is also being cast on at the moment. But yeah, I have a YouTube channel. I have some tutorials there. I should do more. I don't. I've got a lore series there that I have a couple of short stories from the verse in there if you're interested, and maybe I can be convinced to do more of it. But yeah, otherwise that's me. I guess my focus in SC is more isn't too gameplay focused. It's lore and RP, role playing a character within the game, using voice over IP and going, hi, how's it going? I'd trying to see what happens and if people buy into it and have adventures and stuff with people that way. Yeah, weird stuff.
No, I like that. I think everybody can agree that's probably going to be a pretty big part of the game, because GTA RP was huge. That sort of pushed Grand Theft Auto online. Yeah, mm-hmm. So I think Star Citizen will be big for that. I look forward to seeing what you do with that. I might join you.
Stable servers, dude. And yes, 100%. Please do. I mean, you don't even have to make a character in Star Citizen to role play. You don't have to go, I'm an orc. You just talk. And that's it. You're now role-playing the character. Everything else is already there in the, everybody knows what ISC is, who Jax McCleary is, all that stuff. You don't need to do anything weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, Like 100%, dude. I just need more stable servers, stable voice,
Yeah,
stable
yeah,
like
seriously.
We're good.
Because, I mean,
True.
A great example of that is what can I think of their name right now? They do it's gonna bug me now. They do like RP and Star Citizen.
Okay.
Like people just
Starscream?
love them. They stream on Twitch, and we're like friends, and I can't remember the name.
Is it Myre?
No,
they do YouTube stuff?
yeah,
I would've-
I don't know. It's oh, somebody's gonna say it. I'm gonna kick myself for forgetting. It's way
Huh.
too early.
Yeah, I don't
I'll
know.
remember it
up,
in
like-
10 minutes, and then I'll scream about it. But people do
Just yell
this,
it out, yeah.
like people do this like RP content. Expat Brat, there it is. Thank you.
There it is.
I'm gonna kick myself the rest of the day.
Yep.
Expat Brat does that basically where it's like camera work and it's like right in the face and like
Yeah.
voiceovers and stuff, and it's like it's so fun to watch that because it feels like you're invested in them going to get a burrito, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's cool that Star Citizen allows you to do that. You know, it's truly a game that's not like anything else. It's wild.
There's so much potential for it. So much.
Voice,
like you were
face-
saying with sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was saying like you're saying like you don't really need to do much to be role playing in it. Things like the medical like rescue beacons and to get like transport beacons. So many times I've seen just like, you know, non-RP streamers pick one of those up and then go, and then the person they pick up is just talking about like, yeah, I was just out here hauling some cargo and then I got shot down by pirates or I run out of fuel, and like they're not even role playing. They're just saying what they were doing, but they're literally like, they might as well be role playing because they're saying what just happened in the verse and they become a character sort of naturally. And so I think
That's true.
Yeah.
There's so many tools in this game that help for it. I mean, like, even if like, so did you know that like certain helmets have different modulation for voice over IP? Like you put on a Defiance helmet and you literally sound, you sound different. Like
I did not.
It's really cool. Like, I'm going to put out the idea now. I mean, you guys are free to try and do it if you want to. Otherwise, I'm going to spend another month or so and then maybe do it. But I want to do a YouTube video where I basically get every single helmet in the game and then like just do a pass test of all of them to see how the modulation is, that patch for the helmets.
Yeah.
That
You
would
should
be
do that.
insanely cool.
Hell
You should
yeah.
do that for sure.
That
Sounds
is a very
tedious
cool
as hell
one.
to do though.
Somebody's gonna grab that, man.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
now you have to do it fast.
Yeah. That would be cool though. I had no idea it changed
think-
your voice.
98% of players have no idea that
Yeah,
happens.
It's true.
Well,
Because it's like we all expect VoIP to be just goofy and, you know, like, oh, you sound different today for whatever reason, you know?
Yeah.
Because the server's FPS is like 0.1 or what.
Yeah.
well, yeah, and
You
like it's in my experience not very stable. So like I'll talk through it and people tell me my voice is really, really quiet. And I'm like, I have no idea how. I'm looking at the volume and it's all the way up. I don't know how I could change that. And I feel like I run into like small problems with VoIP like that make me not use it as much as I want to.
Because you're wearing
That's
the
a major
marshmallow
issue.
suit and it filters your voice.
That's probably it. Just barely hear me.
The Michelin man's over here yelling at me, waving his arm.
But yeah, the VoIP and FOIP, face and voice over IP, are going to be really cool for role playing and stuff.
100%.
So I brought
Sorry for
you all.
hijacking.
No, that's fine. That was like, I mean, we don't get to talk about that very often because we don't have any voice actors on here or people who care enough about that. And I think like that's the kind of thing that draws people to Star Citizens. They do care about a lot of really obscure things that draw a lot of different people into the game. So that's
That's the best thing about the game, honestly. You know?
yeah, it's a good perspective.
Looking at you, Paul Shelley. All right.
So I brought you all here today because 319 is in PTU. 318 has been live for, gosh, over a month now. Yeah.
I mean, it's longer than that even. It's got to be close to 2 months.
Yeah. I don't even know, but
Well,
it
only like 3 days out of those 2 months have been playable in 318.
Yeah.
right. I was gonna say it feels like longer than it's been. It's been pretty painful. Excuse call to prayer in the background. It's a staple of the podcast. But people are saying that like 318 was trouble, and there are a lot of worries that that trouble will continue, that PES won't be able to be made more efficient. There's also obviously a lot of like sort of plenty of new players have joined since 317 started, And since 3.17, we haven't had a normal patch cycle. So a lot of people are sort of up in the air about what's next. Thought I'd have you guys on here to talk about kind of what you're expecting and what you're seeing with the current game, 3.18, 3.19, and kind of how it's playing. Just a general checkup. So to start off, I'd like you to just describe for our viewers, in your opinion, what Star Citizen is, what it plays like in 2023 right now. And you sound excited. We'll start with you, Myre.
I'm just like, what it is, what it plays like is like what about what it doesn't play like? But
yeah, I mean, it's a fun answer.
In 2023, I mean, it's a mixed bag because you mentioned, of course, 3.18 came about and it had this persistent entity streaming thing that has been this massive undergoing technologically that's caused a lot of issues, gameplay wise, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 2023 SC hasn't necessarily been playable, all the playable bits of it have been in the PTU. But I think that it's kind of coming around now with 3.19. They've done all these bug fixes and bug passes now, and the content teams who did not have anything to do with 3.18 now are now having their content coming in for 3.19. So there's actually something new to do as well. So I guess in general, I mean, Star Citizen in 2023 is promising. I mean, I don't really have anything specific to describe it because obviously 3.19 isn't even out yet. It's in the PTU, and you know how PTUs go. They're the smoothest, the most fun, the most stable the game ever is in the unstable test universe. And then it goes live, and all of a sudden there's a fire somewhere. But yeah, that's my non-answer.
Yeah, PTU will make you feel bad for getting too optimistic.
Yeah.
I feel like it's almost like this entire year has exclusively been, how everyone says, it's in alpha.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really? This entire year, it's literally just only been an alpha. Like every PTU, I see the PTU and live as being exactly the same at the moment. We have not had a single really stable kind of build. I think PES has just been that complicated and that much to work out that we really haven't had a real patch out. Like, yes, there's been content in and everything, and there's all this sort of tech, but it's not like how 3.17.5 was, where you could play it. Like, it was crashing heaps, a lot of 30Ks in that one, but you knew what it was, and it was that reliably for like a long while, to the point that you could sort of advance your game. But I think by this point, like, a lot of us probably already had our little hearts broken enough that we're already in the sort of like PTSD of like, yeah, look, I'll believe it when it's here and it's working properly. Like, I don't think anyone is sitting here going like, next patch, man. It's all going to work. Next patch, it's all going to be great. I swear to God. Like, we're all just kind of like, yeah, look, it's not really working that great. And I mean, I was worrying that like, them pushing for Invictus and 3.19, that like they were just trying to add more things to it so fast that like, the bug fixing and ironing out and getting it to a playable state just was going to be kind of overlooked. But I don't know if you guys saw, but in like the patch notes, they've been talking about that they've found apparently a big problem that has probably been making a lot of the NPCs and stuff sort of bug out for a very long time, and that's apparently coming out in the next PTU patch.
Is there? Are you saying there's another Jesus patch around the horizon? Is that it?
Yeah, apparently.
I've heard this story before.
Yeah, but I mean, it's only rare that they say stuff like that, even in this cycle of promises, where they're like, hold on. It's like they're kind of like, oh, hold on. It's like almost they found like, that fire, that, the tire fire that has been burning for like a long while.
But the thing about that is like, it's not so much that they're gonna fix it, or it's not so much that they might not actually fix it. For me, it's more that they'll fix it, and then like 3 months from now, they'll probably be broken again. The NPCs always break again. Always.
Yeah.
It is known.
It is one of those issues with, like an ongoing alpha, is that like stability is always going to be like fleeting, because whenever they add new mechanics and new systems, then old things are going to by nature just kind of like become more unstable, and the tech is going to rot up until like, the game is, gold standard, and then like things will be a bit more I guess Star Citizen is one of those weird things, right? Like, and I think 2023 for many has been kind of like an eye-opening moment where like, oh yeah, it really isn't an alpha, because like most games that are in an alpha state are not stable. Most don't even have textures. But Star Citizen, because they do this alpha development of this, this game, right? But at the same time, on the other hand, they have this like, triple A like a marketing team that like, push out, oh, this patch is coming out, like just you wait, you can go ahead and you can do all the looting and shooting and bunker busting and stuff.
Playable
and then, like,
now.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh God, that's like the new. That's gonna be the new
That's
joke.
the meme of the year for sure.
Yeah.
Playable now.
Gonna have to name at least one video this year that.
call one of your ships playable now.
The pledge store, buyable now, or whatever.
But I mean, you make a good point. Like that's really the crux of their whole problem, is that they are making a game for people to play right now, when really they're building a game, and you don't generally do that. And we can see how difficult that's been, especially with 318. It's been exacerbated a ton.
Yeah,
it's difficult because they, at one side, like CIG has called it live service in their own words, on their own, like their own people have called it that. They advertise it like it's a live service game. There's YouTube ads saying playable now. They market it like it's a live service game. But I think a lot of the community, myself included, fall back to, well, it's an alpha, so give them a break. Well, they have to balance. Do we fix the stuff? And do we build the stuff? Because when you build the stuff, you break the stuff. When you break the stuff, you have to fix the stuff. And if you're busy fixing this stuff, it's hard to build the stuff. And so they have to, I think, kind of manage that and manage that balance as they go forward.
Yeah.
And I think you get certain patches like 318 when it went live where so much stuff broke that it was hard to fix it. And it's almost like they just said like, hey, we're going to just go to 319 and just build the stuff. We're just going to keep building this stuff because we got to get 319 for Invictus I think that was their plan, right? But and let's try to get 318 kind of like, in a place where some people can play, and
it can't be easy because
it's getting there. Yeah, and it definitely can't be easy. Exactly.
Yeah, because they have this massive goal ahead of them, but at the same time they also have a massive player base that they have to satisfy. And the thing is that if they satisfy the player base with a stable patch, that's dev time, dev hours that they could have spent making the game the players want to play. Right. So like it's this impossible balancing act that just gets called bad management, because like how can you? It's like a catch-22 kind of situation. But
in the middle of all of that, I know people will constantly say, "Oh, all I did was pump out ships make them money." But like, you look at the trends, and as the game is better, people spend more money. Like, if they're putting out consistently good patches, then people are more likely to enjoy the game, be happy, and spend more money. But at the same time, they also have to be like, hey, but there's also this feature coming up soon, so that people are excited to get ships that can use those features, that use the longevity the game is offering with those features. So like, again, there's that balance of making it playable so that people are happy, and making it move forward at a rate that keeps people looking, to what's next.
That actually brings up a good point. There's the 319 new player experience stuff, which I think it's a good time for that. It was a good time for it like 6 months ago, but I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody come into my Twitch chat, or like comments on a YouTube video or whatever, or just on Twitter, wherever you see it, or even in game. There was a guy that I was bounty hunting, and I went after him, and I soft killed his ship, and I left him there, right? And I voiped him, and I was like, hey, man. And he said he was kind of new. Like, he was like, I just rented this ship. I don't really know what I'm doing. And I was like, well, you have a crime stat, so good luck. I didn't send him to prison. And I told him about prison, and I told him, this kind of stuff. And then he ended up getting killed by somebody else and sent to prison. And then in the global chat, he was like, what do I do? Like, what do I do here? And then he said, LOL, easiest refund of my life. And then he logged out. and he's not coming back, you know. Because he
No,
doesn't
yeah.
know what to do in the game. And don't get me wrong, like sandboxy kind of games like this, like Tarkov doesn't tell you what to do. A lot of other games don't really tell you what to do.
Mhm.
So there's an element to that, but there's also an element of like, okay, if you want your players to like come in, enjoy the game, buy accounts, not get refunds, and bring their friends, you have to balance this like cool content, playable, and then like giving your players the ability to play the game without being confused, you know, right out
Yeah.
the gate.
You know,
So there's a lot of stuff to manage, you know, development wise, but it's they're making the game. They have nobody else can do it but them, you know.
true.
Let me ask, if we were, let's say, 3 years earlier, and like the stuff going on around the stability of the game and the problems that we're having right now were happening, would you be as frustrated?
Can you say that again? I missed part of it.
If we were having these same problems, but 3 years earlier, I don't know what that would probably be, like 3.8, 3.9-ish time.
We probably were. Maybe
Would
not
you?
these exact
Yeah, I
same
mean, like,
problems.
yeah. Well, I guess that's a better question. Do you feel like the game was less or more stable back then?
Oh, it's tough to say. I mean, there's
Let's-
always some things that were less or more stable, but
Right,
there was always
let's
so much less, you know.
Yeah, there's so much left
Ignore.
to do.
There was no inventory, there was no respawn, like you didn't go to prison, you didn't, you know, there's so many things that couldn't break
Mhm.
that it feels like it was more stable, you know? Because it was
Yeah.
like all you did was wake up, get in a spaceship, go to security post Korea and shoot each other, you know?
That's
And it was
kind
like
of
when that's all there is to do, you know, it's harder. It's you have less of a chance of things breaking, you know. When there's a lot more to do, when the game becomes like Space Thieves, Sea of Thieves, as it kind of has more recently,
Mhm.
you know, you just have this potential for more things to be janky, which is a good thing from a content perspective, but also kind of a scary thing from a perspective of you're looking at the devs and you're like, are you guys going to be able to handle all this stuff? Like, are you guys going to be able to handle the bug load that comes along with everything you're building, you know?
Yeah. You're
And
talking
I think-
to go on.
Sorry, it's especially that because I think we've even come to a point now where they'll add things to the game
Mhm.
and that'll be in like a patch. But then, you know, they're already working on the next patch with a bunch of new features and stuff in it. It's like, well, hold on. You haven't finished this patch. Like,
Mm.
this patch isn't working yet. Like, even alphas will be like, all right, we're going to put these new additions to the game. And they'll put all the things there and then they'll put it out and yeah, it'll break. Then we test it and they'll fix it and yeah, it'll break. And then they'll test it and then they get it to a working point. Then they move on to new features and stuff. But like with the 3.18, like, you know, there was so much time in between like getting that out there that they were like, you're like, oh, you know, there was this extra time. So we got to, you know, Barry over here went and made some racing tracks. And then we added this as well. We added this as well. Mate, hold on. It's like you're adding a lot of things in here.
Well,
like maybe just get those first ones in and just make sure they work really good, you know? Like you know,
Well-
I mean it seems weird asking almost for less, but like I mean it's like come on.
Well, my point about asking about a few years ago was because we were in a situation, we were at a time in the development of this game when people were saying, you guys build a patch and then you just don't do anything. Like there was a point where people were very frustrated with the pace of features coming in, and so CIG made this whole big deal about staggered development. We're working on the previous patch before this patch comes out, or working on the next patch before this one comes out, so that we can always have features that are kind of constantly going and we never really fall behind. And like that's all people were asking for before back then.
Yeah.
And that people were asking for features, right? And I think we were continuously heading down this path of like the game was slowly getting more and more enjoyable, slowly getting more and more to actually playable status. And we were reaching this crossroads where you were like, okay, this is now a game people are playing and not just a game being made. And you guys have to balance I guess what we've been talking about, the stability versus the features, the ability to continue working in this staggered development way despite having problems going on the other side of the business. And I think that if they weren't doing it this way, we would have problems with that as well.
I think I can't really answer this question really because you're talking to like a Star Citizen veteran here that has you know, like I've been here since like 2015, you know, like 2016, 2017. Were you there for the content drought of 2017? Like 2.6.3 when there was this one patch, and I know it doesn't really excuse what's happening now, of course, because CIG would have to learn from mistakes and stuff like that. But I think when it comes just down to me and my level of patience, I've been here. So when it comes down to if today was 3 years ago, how would you feel? I, I don't know. I think that there's a certain kind of I don't think I'm mentally well to have been able to to withstand 263 and stay with Star Citizen till now. But I think they're on a regardless, I think they're on the right track going forwards with it now with 319.
I think something that's kind of difficult. Well, not difficult. It's just something I've noticed. It feels like for the longest time, CIG was like, okay, we have some money, right? So let's build a game. And then they said, we have a lot of money all of a sudden. Let's build a bigger game, and then it just kept happening and happening and happening.
Right.
And I think they finally reached a point, maybe, I don't know, 3 years ago, where they were like, let's build this game. And it doesn't matter how much money we have. If we can add a few, this is the game we want to build. Because at one point, we didn't have, we were never going to have the Corsair. It was never going to be a thing early.
Right.
It was just, there's so many ships and places and things and mechanics that were just never going to be a thing. And then at some point, CIG said, I think we have the throttle to do this. I think we have the horsepower to do this eventually. And it became this feature creep and scope creep kind of thing that a lot of us have talked about.
Yeah.
And I think we've maybe kind of turned this corner, like you just said, where it was it kind of seems like they know what they want to build, and they kind of know how they want to build it. And now it's just a matter of them getting through all that, and building the game they want to build, which is cool. It's cool to see that. It's cool to kind of see more of a vision of it feels like they're kind of determined on what they want to do, rather than 4 or 5 years ago when they were like, I don't know, we'll see what happens.
I think scope was set relatively early. I want to say in 2015, during the Manchester Citizen Con, the vibe that CIG gave off was very different from 2016. 2015, the space to planetary transitions and stuff, Chris Roberts, in his own words, was, maybe he was trying to drum a pipe, but him and his release dates. He said it's a pipe dream. And then one dev spent some time and managed to figure out what they called pupil to planet. And after that, Answer the Call 2016, nobody picked up because they were like, wait, shit, we can do this. And I feel that was when they did a massive scope change internally, with Squadron 42, with Star Citizen. But they've since then, 2017, they've shown Excel sheets or whatever like that of what their plan was, what they needed, the object container streaming, the server meshing, the PES and all that stuff. Even the PES was called something else. I don't think that from a technological standpoint, the scope creep has really happened. But once server meshing is done, I don't think that they have anything else that they've told us, the community, that they need to make to build before they can make the game. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with that.
That is, server meshing comes around. That's when they had to put up.
They have been pretty the stuff I said before about we haven't had it sort of stable yet. I guess they have always had that in their back pocket of well, it can never really be stable properly until we have server meshing, until we have pairs. There's a lot of stuff that's been sort of on hold, capital ships, the multiple systems, whatever, because they've been well, we don't have this core tech, we don't have this core tech, we don't have this core tech. And so I think a lot of people have just kind of been assuming that it's I guess this isn't working, but it will once we have all these other things in. But that excuse is going to quickly start running out
very soon. Very soon. Man.
I think that's
here on, so that's supposed to be having it soon.
And you know what? I'm happy that we're still very, very early in this process, almost to the point where I shouldn't even be saying this. But I'm happy to see that since we got PES, every patch that they have even considered has been significant. And that's 2 patches, I know, but 318 with PES, cargo refactor, salvage. 319 after that, physicalized components, something that we've been waiting for a long time. Patch after that, we can already see the whole C is planned. So another cargo refactor, freight elevators, that kind of stuff. What comes after 3.20? Could it be 4.0? Maybe it's 3.21. Either way, though, I'm pretty sure it's going to be something with more substantial features. And prior to 3.16, it was kind of a crapshoot if you were going to have a patch that felt like a legit good change to the game, or just kind of, you know, a few cool features. Some what was that one? The staggering, that kind of stuff. You know, staggering, a new weapon, a new helmet. Now it's like a full game system.
True. Do we answer questions in chat, by the way? Because I just want to like address one small thing.
You can bring them up, yeah.
All right, with a really terrible analogy. So the question is, why stop growing and creating? You know, like this is addressing the word scope creep when it comes to development. Okay, here's my really bad analogy. Imagine that you are starving and you want dinner, and your mom or like yourself is cooking dinner. Like if you keep like, you know, adding more ingredients or whatever, or like, you know, waiting for more things to come to make dinner's going to pass. You're going to starve. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if like, you know, breakfast the following day is going to be legit. You know what I mean? Like, you want a dinner. So it doesn't matter. Like CIG can make this really amazing, really grandiose game in the future, the following day, but they still need to have something for what we expected, you know, like the dinner that we wanted, we ordered in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, but Myre, I like to pick the food and eat it as I cook.
All right, fine. Screw my analogy. I'm out of here.
No, the taste is worse, man. You can go back against that. It doesn't taste as good. It's all cold and unprepared.
All right, okay.
No, but I agree with you there. Like at some point you do need to lock in the dinner for, you know, to stick with the metaphor. Like I agree with the whole you got to grow sort of thing, but you got to grow on top of a foundation. And I think a lot of people have felt like Star Citizen hasn't found a foundation. It feels like it's really starting to come together now, but like that's a long ways down. So it's understandable that people feel impatient about it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I mentioned earlier about like they have to balance like building new things and fixing current things.
Yeah,
because they want us to have fun and play the game and spend money and not get refunds because nothing works, right? But they also have to build that next new thing that might break some of that stuff, and that's a difficult thing when a lot of your development horsepower is being spent on Squadron 42. You know, which again, I love the idea of Squadron 42. Descent Free Space was like the reason I play Star Citizen. And if Squadron 42 is anything like a single player driven storyline, I'll put 300 hours into it, you know? So it's just one of those things that's like, you have to do things and I think they learned this over the past couple of years where I think it was a couple of years ago where they were like, look, we've got this mess of code, we got this mess of stuff going on, and we have to figure out our base. Like we have to figure out, you know, the bottom level before we can keep just throwing stuff on top, because we have all this like spaghetti code isn't the right word maybe, but you know what I'm saying, you know, a lot of problematic code and old engine stuff. We have to like figure that out before we can start putting the game we want to build on top of it. And to be honest, they've stayed true to that, I think, for the most part for the last couple of years. Their development horsepower has, I think, a lot very much been focused on engine and focused on performance and focused on, you know, PES and backend stuff, and the base stuff that you can build a game on, which is good. It's good to see that, but it's also frustrating to live in that as a player, you know, where you're like, this thing is broken because they're building it. They're gonna, you know, like shields, for instance.
Oh my gosh,
shields had shield holes forever.
Yeah,
we all complained about it, and then they said, hey, there's this new thing coming called SDF shields, and we were like, okay. And then like 3 months later, you know, or whatever, the SDF shields finally came, and it was like, okay, well, they're not going to fix the shield holes because they're going to replace them with SDFs.
There's a lot of that in this game for sure. Yeah,
it's very, very common. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some of these things, though, I mean, like the community, like I understand, I really do, when it comes down to why fix this issue, which would take, you know, like, you know, let's say $10,000 worth of man hours, whatever, instead of just like waiting for this next feature to come in. But there's certain things in there in the live environment that could be tweaked, and with no gameplay experience, no game design experience, like, you know, at all, you know, one could think, oh, it doesn't take that long to fix. Like, look at economy and like things like that within Star Citizen. Everybody knows that Quanta is coming in, and they're going to have Quanta compute like a living and breathing economy with supply and demand. But until then, it'd be very nice if there was, you know, like certain trade goods had a price that made trade viable and you want to do it. You know what I mean? Like, even if it is just like static.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, the whole excuse of like, we aren't going to fix that because we're going to replace it with something else, it breaks down in some areas. And one of those areas is trade, in my opinion.
100%.
Like, when all you have to do is turn a dial or like change one value to like make something enjoyable, right? Do it. You know, I don't care if you're going to replace that system with something else.
Yeah,
Do it and make the game more fun.
Trading has been a difficult part. I'm glad we see a bit of an update on that front when it comes to 319, though, with the resource redistribution and a little bit of it seems like different values.
Huge.
Yeah. So
I'm
actually,
watching, Salty Mike and Croncy a little bit, like work through some of the mining changes, and it's just wild. All the things that are different.
Yeah,
Totally
I want to definitely get a chance to sit down with some folks who've been digging into that and talk about it, because that's a lot of stuff going on. I think actually they're having to talk about that today. Let's dive in more into 319 though. Let's talk about 319. It's on PTU, and generally, like, it's a change from 318. It doesn't change the entire game, but it adds some fairly significant things, like the new player experience, I think, and the component stuff. But overall, the game is kind of like playing in a certain kind of way. And I'd like to know from your own perspective, besides the login problems and like the PES obvious issues we've been having, how does the game feel to you, gameplay wise, right now?
319 or 318?
Whatever you've played last. 319 PTU, I guess.
Like, it's hard because the PTU, like 318, when it was in PTU, we're like, okay, cool, this is gonna be the coolest patch ever, and then it was the worst patch ever.
Yeah, so like ignore stability wise, just looking at features and how they work.
Let's assume that on day one, 319 works. So there's a big ask, but let's assume that. It's very, very cool. I mean, the ability to do a bounty mission and call in a salvager. Let's say that you go kill some guy in like a Valkyrie, right? And you call in a salvager, sell your little salvage claim for like 5,000 credits or something, make a little bit of money, and then you can actually go through some of the ships, like if you kill a Gladius, right? And you can actually go through it and take parts off of it and then sell those parts, you know, from like NPCs, or like refit your ship with guns on the fly or something like that. That's just the coolest thing ever, you know? And when salvage, like hull scraping, first came in, one of my first thoughts was like, man, I really hope we get component salvage soon, because it feels so cool to be able to just place a component on your ship, like in the cargo bay, and say, I have that now, and now I can sell it to a station or a player or a whatever. And that adds so much to the game. So just the components selling alone, I think it adds so much to the game. Imagine going out and finding, like, you know, a Vanguard that you can take the Crossfield or the Jaeger off of, and then being like, hey, I have a fast quantum drive, who wants to pay me 90K for it, or, you know, whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's like finding a railgun, but you don't have to rely on bunker locations or loot boxes to get it. You could just literally attack an NPC, kill it, take his stuff, and then sell it to a player, which is just, or use it yourself or sell it to a station or whatever, which is very, very cool.
It was unexpected. When they showed us the ISC with the tractor beams and they started pulling out components, I had to like sit back for a second and be like, wait.
Is this just concept? Come on, CIG. Is this concept, please?
Is this like the toilet? Is this like the toilet exploding?
Is that previs? Because it's like they talked up salvage for freaking years, like 4 or 5 years we've been hearing about salvage, and then it finally comes and they focus on hull scraping, talking about it, release it, and we are already hearing about hole munching. So it's like, okay, maybe like a year, maybe a few quarters, we'll get hole munching, and then like they'll work towards components. They just drop components in the next patch.
Yeah. To give, I guess, the audience a refresher on CIG's scope for salvage, there are 4 steps to salvage that CIG kind of set out. The first was hull scraping, which we have and which kind of works in kind of like a power wash simulator in space kind of deal. The second was component retrieval, which they've shown us, and it already works in 319 for weapons, but not necessarily for items and stuff. 320 is going to give us the missions called consignment missions to go into a ship and get things that people want, subcomponents, components, that kind of thing. The third is, I believe, what they called siphoning, which is to use an item to basically drain hydrogen fuel, quantum fuel, any liquid fuels and stuff from a vehicle. And then the fourth is is munching. So what Space Tomato said is that like the three of the four. I didn't mean to just flick off the camera, but I did. Three of the four mechanics that they've outlined have already been like shown to us in different ways, like with hull munching and stuff like that. We just don't have siphoning. So it seems as if like salvage is coming a long way. That being said, I mean, like when it comes down to things coming, like being around the corner, what happened to naming my ships? What happened to the 300i like configurator, moving that to other ships and stuff like that? Sometimes things kind of seem to be just around the corner with Star Citizen, and then that corner is the biggest bend you've ever seen. So I don't know.
They build it to prove it works, and then they move on.
Yeah,
exactly.
When agile development gets too agile.
Yeah.
It almost feels like ADD sometimes. It's just like
it really is.
We're working on mining. Mining's in a sort of playable state, but the economy doesn't really work, and the only thing that's valuable is quantum. But here's salvage.
Well, they even said it
for us.
Shiny,
It's not playable for you guys. You don't need it working. As long as we got it in-house, then we've proven it to ourselves.
And they said that in Star Citizen Live this week. They were like, yeah, we were finished up with mining a year ago. And then like people said things and we realized, oh, wait, hold on, we're not. So we came back to mining, and it's like, I appreciate that they'll listen to the community and hear that and be like, okay, yeah. But also at the same time, it's like, you guys, you didn't see that already? Get that?
Yeah.
Oh, and there's a game that's like lived its entire life cycle, which is Elite Dangerous, that has mining systems that are, way more in depth than Star Citizen. It's not even close. I mean, I love Star Citizen, and I actually like mining in Star Citizen sometimes. But Elite Dangerous's mining system blows Star Citizens out of the
That's
water.
that deep core mining.
Deep core mining. There's different types of mining. That's the whole thing.
Okay.
Like there's like 3 different types of mining that are all profitable in different ways. There are mining missions. There are pirates that attack you. Like it feels like you're playing. It feels like you're mining. And so when you don't notice that game is light years ahead of you, even though it's 10 years old and you think you're done with mining, like there's only one thing that people bother mining, which is Quantanium. You guys think you're done? No.
Yeah, they definitely needed to do a resource balance there. I'm glad
they are. Glad they are.
I don't like suggesting mechanics and stuff like for CIG to implement because I'm not a game dev or whatever like that. But like when it comes down to mining, I agree with the whole Quantanium thing. If they were to give us a mission that says, hey, we need 10 SCU of copper, now you have a reason to look for copper and get copper regardless of how much it sells for.
Yeah,
but they're not even doing that for 319.
I think that'd be good for new players too. It's like, hey, get us like 5 SCU of copper and we'll pay you like, 15K or something,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like they pay us 15K to go to a bunker for 5 minutes. So why not,
Yeah.
Dedleader, you were, I think, going to say something about the gameplay?
Yeah, like just before we move on to mining, as a salvager, I have some thoughts on the component salvaging, especially for my org, because when salvaging sort of came out, I'm like, yeah, look, I enjoy this, so I'm gonna make an org sort of, once again, the skull scrapers, shout out. I was like, all right, well, this will be interesting, so we'll start it here. And when they started doing the component stuff, like we sort of realized together in our Discord, we're like, hold on, like we're gonna become one of the most powerful sort of industry kind of groups doing salvaging. Like if we're the ones going around constantly doing salvaging, constantly collecting all these components, like we're going to essentially become the Jawas of the Star Citizen universe. And there are only 2 problems I've got to say. As a Jawa, as a space Jawa, I've got to say there's 2 potential problems or solutions at the moment with the way they've got component salvaging, which I'm hoping will get fixed. Is that one, at the moment, it's like, yes, you can take components off things, but then they're kind of stuck as a physical component. So that means that unless you're going to sell them directly to like a shop, or you're going to put them on your ship, or you've got to essentially keep a ship that its exclusive role is to keep those physical items on it. And store it on there. And the only solution is either make them so you can put them in an inventory, or I'm imagining where it's heading is that the like the hangar version 2 or whatever, where we're going to be able to have persistent hangars where we store things and have cargo and that all around. I'm imagining they're thinking that we're going to physically like take these to our hangar, these components, and sort of like store them in a a hangar bay kind of thing where they're going
Yeah.
to be just sort of physically around, and then you
Mhm.
go and use that as like a physical inventory for large things like that. I'm imagining that's what's happening with
They
that sort of
talked about this
cargo
yesterday.
rework. Oh, did they?
On Star Citizen
And
Live, yeah, they said
I-
there's going to be a elevator. You place the components in there, and it will go into your inventory for the space station.
Oh,
Yeah.
there is. Okay, because I was
Yeah.
watching bits of that, and I'm like, they're just boring me again. with
Yeah,
stuff.
check
So
the
after that-
roadmap for what they call freight lift.
Oh,
That's what
thank
that is.
God. Oh, thank God. Okay, because that was my one big problem. Because I was like, all right, Jesus, I've got to think of like a ship that I'm going to store. Well, in the meantime, this is what we are going to have to do. Like, we're going to physically keep these in a ship, and I kind of did figure out the perfect ship for it. It's the Caterpillar.
Ooh.
Plane salvaging with the Caterpillar is 100% the most perfect one, because
Honestly, yeah.
Hercules, you need that for not only is it a better just cargo, trader, the Hercules, but you also need it for vehicles, and you don't want that shit all bouncing around with each other. But with the Caterpillar, you ain't getting vehicles on there.
Yeah, well, not until they get that elevator working. But that whole idea of cargo stations is actually really, like, what they've said with the concept of it is really big, because they want you to be storing stuff but be paying for storage fees, which means you're trying to decide strategically where you're keeping stuff, which star systems, what are you paying
Where's your home
regular
base
money
gonna
to?
be?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's going to be a
love
lot with the logistics of storing things and moving them around, I think. Because cargo hauling is cargo hauling, right? But there's so much of the logistics behind cargo hauling and the trading side of it. I think they're going to put a lot of detail into needing to figure that out.
So
it definitely makes the Bounty Merchantman and the whole like being able to sell, having trading ships, that makes that far more exciting now. Because orgs like myself, like, we might become like the wholesaler to like orgs that are like focusing on selling and stuff. So we go out and we get them at a bulk price kind of thing, and then we sell them to them, then they upsell them as they sell them from their Bounty Merchantman or whatever. Like that whole thing, it seems fucking sick.
yeah. So there's no scope. Sorry, go on.
No, please.
Just to go on top of what Dedleader says, or to tell him, like, there's no current, like, how would you say, projection for org-based, like, hangars and stuff, but persistent hangars are on the way, and with that should be the ability now that, let's say you spawn on a server, you then go to the ATC, and then you go to your hangar, it'll then spawn in your hangar the way you left it. So that means, piles of scrap, boxes, and that kind of thing. So you can then have, without having the freight elevator, like, which will move it from the hangar to your local inventory, you will be able to have your mess or your bunch of ships or whatever in there for you to facilitate your
I can't wait for that.
your gameplay, and that should be pretty cool. But to answer your question, Space, about like 319 and how it plays or how you feel about it, honestly, I think this one in particular does set a really cool baseline for things to come in the future for Star Citizen. Like a lot of really cool mechanics we're now seeing just kind of blossom. But I think that at the moment, at the very least for now, 319, the people who will be getting the most out of it will be people who are a bit more experienced within Star Citizen. They have a new player experience thing that I've tried. It's cool, but it is like maybe 10% of the new player experience. As Zero said, like if you get blown up by a player and you have no idea what prison is, that tutorial is not going to help you with anything. It doesn't even teach you how to set your spawn point. But like I think for experienced players, being able to like set up logistics and stuff, if you get like a tier 2 salvage mission and like find an empty prospect, you can then harvest that prospect as saddlebags, and now you have enough resources to be able to now have mining, salvage, and cargo hauling loop with your guild just by having some separate saddlebags and that kind of thing. It's really exciting for like organized like experienced players for sure.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a new tactility. Is that a word? Tactility to the game that we didn't have before.
Yeah,
like the cargo refactor, the salvaging, and the tractor beam stuff. I think has added a new feel to the game.
Depth is good. If you can develop one thing that adds depth to multiple game loops, that's the biggest win that you can have when you're developing. I'm not a developer, right? But I feel like that's the biggest win you can have as a developer. Like the multi-tool is a great example of this. The multi-tool advanced almost every single game loop.
Oh,
And
yeah.
deepened almost every single game loop. Like the guy or the team that invented or built the multi-tool should be getting quarterly raises of at least 5%. They have made
Here,
this
here.
Rollover
game
raises.
so much better. Like, I mean, they should be the most proud developers on the planet because just from that win, you know,
Mhm.
it's completely changed the game, and it's completely changed almost every single game loop. We used to complain about Beam Citizen or whatever,
Mhm.
but the reality is, if Beam Citizen makes the game more enjoyable, then go for it. You know, I mean,
100%.
for the most part, I mean, there's limits to that, but I think if it makes the game more enjoyable, if you can further every game loop and deepen every game loop and make every game loop easier to develop because
Mhm.
you've made a beam that does a lot of things, then go nuts. Like whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I guess to kind of play off of that question, since we're still in the midst of answering that, to kind of build on that, I'm interested in hearing from you guys how you play the game differently now than you did a year ago. Like, let's say back when 3.17.0 first came out, are you doing anything different, or are you still just same old, same old?
Mm,
I look for
I th-
more opportunity, I think.
Mhm. Yeah.
Rather than going out and like, I'm gonna go mining today, or I'm gonna go bounty hunting today, or I'm gonna whatever today. I go out and I just kind of go, let's see what the mission, you know, tab brings us. Let's see who I run into at Brio's Brickyard. You know, let's see what, and then so I kind of come prepared with a tractor beam. I come prepared with weapons. You know, I come prepared with medical. You know, I see a medical beacon pop. Well, that's what we're doing for the next 10 minutes. You know, so
Yeah.
I think I like that. I like that feeling of being. If it makes me feel like more of a freelancer. You know, I'm out there just you know, raw dog in life.
Yeah, I agree.
That's one
I
way to
was
put
very
it.
much, I was very much just like, you know, reputation grinding bunkers mostly, and
Mhm.
like it felt like kind of that was what I was working every time I was getting on. It's how I was making money to gather ships and whatever. But now it definitely feels more like I can jump on, and like as you said, it's like, all right, what's going to happen now? And like, you know, I might go and do that bunker, you know, but then something will pop up along the way because of like, you know, I'll see some crash site or whatever, or a bunch of different missions will kind of kick in. Like there is a lot more sort of dynamic gameplay elements all sort of interwoven in between that mission structure, it feels like, or at least opportunity to kind of tool around and have fun. And so I don't think I go on thinking that I'm going to do something very specific anymore, but not that
Yeah.
that specific thing is gone, you know?
Yeah, I think as a content creator, like Star Citizen, like even 6 months ago, okay, let's say a year, 2 years ago, because you're constantly having to do something, it was very emergent gameplay dependent. It was very sandbox dependent. Like mechanically, we just simply aren't anywhere near where we are right now. So you kind of have to make your own gameplay a lot of the time, even if you were kind of focusing on, say, PvP or mining or something. It was still very much make your own gameplay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There is more framework now, and so you can still do that now, but at the same time, now Star Citizen is playing more like a game that you don't have to have this, like, you know, I don't know how it is for you guys as content creators, but there's no pressure on your head going, how do I make this fun for people for the 1000th time this year? You know, like there's direction there. You can now just do a
Yeah.
mission loop or something like that, and like the emerging gameplay and the multiplayer and the new 100-player cap stuff will come to you, and then you know you can just play the game and enjoy it that way instead.
Yeah.
Right?
So
Yeah.
it sounds like what you guys are saying is there are more objectives to find, to go after.
Right.
Like it's not like you have to pick some central gameplay to make the game fun. Now you have choices to go and do things that normally you wouldn't maybe have scheduled, which is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's much better
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah,
Well, and
yeah.
I think a big part of it, like I used to tell people, if a year ago, if you asked me what Star Citizen is, people would say like, what is Star Citizen? You know, they'd come in the chat, whatever, ask what Star Citizen's like, and I would say like, it's kind of like Daisy, Tarkov in space, right? Like that's kind of how I describe it. Like you go out there, you do things, you have a task in mind, you go do it. Now, when people ask, I almost always say Sea of Thieves, because it
Yeah.
feels like you get in your ship, you go out, and who knows? Maybe you'll find, you know, a bunch of chests. Maybe you'll find a big boss ship to fight. Maybe you'll come across other players in a galleon, or whatever that you have to try to deal with or run away from or whatever. And it just feels a lot more like Sea of Thieves these days than it did even a year ago. A year ago, it felt like I said, like Space Tarkov or Space Daisy, where you were a player flying a ship and you would choose a little gameplay loop to go do, and a lot of
Especially in
times
the
you were by
PTU.
yourself.
Especially in the PTU. You're right.
Yeah, so it really feels like it's brought it together into more of a sandboxy feel a little bit, especially with things like the multi-tool salvage, pulling components, different gameplay loops really coming to their own. It just feels like you can freelance it so much more,
Yeah, that's a good point. There are a lot of space games that have come out, that are coming out. So I think space games are having a little bit of a renaissance right now. I love it. And obviously there are some that people compare to Star Citizen, but I don't think there's really any direct comparison, any direct competitor. I would like to know, though, if you guys feel like, I don't know how many other games you play, but do you feel like there are any other games that can kind of scratch that itch that Star Citizen does, that kind of hits the same feeling when you're playing?
In
It depends
different
on what it
ways,
is.
games like Valheim might, but it's
Yeah.
a totally different game, but it gives you the ability to literally like craft your world, and that's cool. I mean, Minecraft would probably be another one. I think Minecraft has had a kind of a bit of a renaissance in the last like 6 weeks. I've noticed a lot of people playing it.
That's
Satisfactory
cool.
is a decent one that scratches some of those itches, or
Yeah.
those kind of games. I think
Star Citizen,
Everspace 2,
because
some
it's
people would say. I don't know. Go
yeah,
ahead.
because SC is multi-genre. I mean, like, it's not really about scratching an itch when Star Citizen is a rash. You know what I mean? Like,
Gross.
I
but,
do
like,
reckon
yeah.
that there is sort of something in, like, as much as we talk about like, oh, development this and oh, this isn't working and all that and all the drama and everything, there is something unique about Star Citizen's drama slash it being something actively developed that like is very unique to the experience. Like, we got like 2 official pieces of content a week, with Inside Star Citizen and Star Citizen Live, and like getting to be a part of that discussion and having something to check up on and be like, oh, they mentioned this, ooh, this is coming, and then talking to the kind of community about it. That whole sphere is its own type of enjoyment, even if during that sphere is a lot of like toxicity or us being like begrudgingly about how things aren't working.
Yeah.
Following along with that, to me, is probably one of the most entertaining parts about this game. Like knowing that it's like actively still happening. The way that they do that is a unique part of the gameplay for me, and I don't have any other game that kind of does that in the same way they do.
It's it makes me excited for the future, partially because like there's so much of a culture building around this game already based on what you just said. Just the idea of like sharing news and getting excited for advancements and features together. Like there is a very strong link in the community because of that. And I also wonder, once we get to that point where the game's not necessarily finished, whatever that might mean, but like, let's say Live, they've gotten everything kind of stapled down that they want, and they're just adding new systems and new factions and stuff like that. Will that same, like, will the community sort of culture and zeitgeist have to change, or will it still be as passionate, Because
I think
then
definitely
things are different.
Yeah.
They're always going to be adding things, and it'll always be stuff, it is a live, even without it being a stable live service game. Like once everything is working, it's still going to be like, community run esports stuff, internal drama with content creators or like specific like functions of the game or people getting angry on Spectrum. That shit's always gonna
PvP
be
or
there,
griefing.
Always. Well,
I
I
think
think
it's a bit of tea. There's a bit of tea in all that, and I think it's a bit of a guilty pleasure, to be honest.
if your game
They
stops
like the
having,
drama.
if your game stops having drama moments,
It's
I
dead.
think
Dead. It's really
yeah, I don't know if dead, maybe close to dead. It's dying, and you've seen it in a few other games, I'm sure, but it just feels like
it just means people don't
the
care.
activity,
Yeah.
the activity
Yeah.
brings personalities, and the personalities bring drama. Players, streamers, content creators, doesn't matter, right? You just always when your global chat is everybody's getting along, the server's not as exciting,
Somebody's got to come in here and throw an insult down.
I mean, hey, like, I was one of the first conga liners, you know what I mean? Like for the Halloween stuff. Kumbaya moments are cool, but at the same time, PvP has its moments as well. I feel like as the game evolves and as it grows and we get more mainstream and we get more mainstream players into it, there is definitely going to be a change, culturally. And I feel like like with the law systems in place as they develop, as they mature, hopefully we'll get to a point where you won't have to worry too much about necessarily being ganked in a station that no longer has armistice because CIG want to do away with it. You know what I mean? But I think time will tell. Like it really depends on like if this game goes free to play. Because if you do that, then that barrier to entry for kids and that kind of will definitely kind of like sully a lot of that, I guess, what would you want to call like what player community vibe, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I hope it doesn't do something like that.
What is the average age, of like, we had this figure before in like 2017, the average age of, it was like 42 or something, like literally it was like 42 like in 2016, 2017, but I'm sure it's getting younger and younger, and as it gets younger,
we all backed this game when we were 10 and now we're all 30.
Yeah,
I'm gonna laugh when somebody grows up and they're like, yeah, my dad bought me an account when I was born, just as a joke, and it turns out I'm playing on it now
as an investment.
Like a stock and bond or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. But that's actually a good point.
Into it from time to time, and now I have a whole portfolio.
Can't afford a home, but my hangar's sick.
Gotta live in the ship. But the community has changed a lot recently. I think a ton. I actually was doing some research on the population, and by the end of this year, if we continue at the rate that we're going, by the end of this year, there will be more people who have joined after COVID-19 happened than before. So
Jesus. Okay.
That's like the last 3 years about versus the first 7. And the community is exploding. Have you guys, do you feel like you guys have noticed a change in the way that people talk or look at the game over the last year or couple of years?
They expect more.
Oh yeah, they expect more.
Not used to the crumbs.
As the game progresses, you need to expect more. As time goes on.
I'm the youngest.
Expands, right?
I'm the youngest player among here of this. Like I only really got into it in the past like year and a half kind of thing, after following for ages, but then finally getting into it. And people like coming in from where I am, I feel so grateful not to have been previously burnt so much. I know. Right. So I can live in sort of like ignorant bliss in a way, I kind of feel. But I think that's probably also why I've been sort of welcomed a lot. I think because being like so new to it, probably my perspective is quite different to a lot of like old hat content creators that I probably maybe appeal to the new player a little bit more, just because there's a little less salty or grumpiness in me. Maybe I don't know. My stuff's getting me a little bit salty recently, but
I think
Salty Mike didn't used to be called Salty Mike. Just put it there. You're right about
that.
Yeah,
he was Pork 17 before,
because his name's always describe him, right? He used to be Twerk.
Yeah.
That's a dead. I think there's actually there was an interesting shift over the last year or so where content going out on YouTube changed. I think the attention-grabbing content started to change more from the news, speculation-focused stuff to the gameplay, which is good for the game. I mean, that says really good things for the game.
There's a game now.
Yeah, and I think that's part of that. How many videos
can you make about going to security post Korea and shooting each other?
Right. So I think you landed on that, Dedleader, at a good time when the gameplay really started to pick up and give people a better perspective.
I honestly, like every day, I feel very blessed for the fact that the community has sort of welcomed me as a new sort of content creator as much as they have. Like honestly, because so easily. Like a lot of people are out there sort of trying to make content for Star Citizen, and barely anyone has sort of a lot of that views and that I've managed to kind of get. And And this isn't a brag. This is just me once again saying that I'm extremely humbled that such a tough community has been so kind to me. It's actually been incredible, to be honest.
Well, congratulations on it. Takes hard work.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so in general, you guys just feel like the standards expectations have gone up. Do you feel like there's any difference in discourse or how people interact with ISC or Star Citizen Live or like the community team?
I want to say that some larger content creators have definitely helped to massage people's expectations of Star Citizen, like 318 notwithstanding. But like, Linus Tech Tips and people, they had that big video last year, like that basically outlined what Star Citizen was, where it's going, and why it's so different. And I think that because it had such big reach, the people who have seen it and have seen that video, whatever, kind of like understand, you know what I mean? A bit more so than somebody who just goes, oh, like this game is a scam or that kind of thing. I definitely feel like the popularity of the game, thankfully, has kind of not just reached people who are looking for the next big drama thing to meme about, like most big content creators out there who talk about why things fail or like who talk about, scam games have taken a wide berth from Star Citizen. They haven't touched it because like I don't know why exactly, but
There
I
haven't
think
been any
because they
big negative
haven't,
headlines.
like even though there's been a massive uptick in players and people picking it up, there hasn't necessarily been, at least from what I've seen so far, like, watching YouTube comments and that kind of thing, there hasn't necessarily been that as much negativity as it, even in a DS era, like when there were so many less people.
Those people, the channels that do that, and I mean, honestly, I've talked to a couple of them before just because I do like their other content, but you'll notice that they generally only do that when there's a big negative headline to kind of tent pole the video around. You find something that's stuck out and then you can talk about the rest of the project. And Star Citizen, I think 318 was the last chance for them to have that, but I don't know, I might be biased, but I think that they kind of had a little bit of a shield with PES being substantial. It's not like they dropped in a new ship and it killed the game. Like they actually did something significant. So it might have been harder to want to make a video focusing on that.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people still, you see it all the time. They think that like, all right, I'm going to start making content about this game. And they pick up on the vibe of like criticizing it. And then they go, all right, cool. That's what people want. And then they just start head out the gate. And you can tell they're like a new player, but they're just head out the gate with just like trashing stuff. And like, I cringe so hard when I see that. Like the people, and I'm not against people being critical of the game. It's just that if someone's going to be critical of the game, I want to hear that they know what the fuck they're talking about.
I was just going to say, if you're going to be critical, be right.
Yeah, 100%. And like when people aren't, and they're just like trying to juice on people's disappointment and kind of fan that because they think that that's what content is with Star Citizen. It just makes me go like, dude, it's not going to happen for you.
Yeah.
I wanted to finish up today with you guys. We kind of were talking about 318 and 319 and the state of the game there. We've got a decent patch with 319 coming up, but in your opinion, do you think and I know this is going to get a lot of fun comments. Do you think it deserves the number 319? Should it be 318.3? What do you, what's your take on this controversial subject?
If they make enough changes to mining, and if the component salvage is enough, like if it's really game changing for that gameplay loop, those two gameplay loops really, then I'm cool with it. I mean, it doesn't matter to me all that much, The reality is, it's either going to be 318.3, and then there's going to be a 319, which is 320 renamed to 319, or it's going to be 319 and then 320. I mean, the numbers don't matter all that much to me.
But
yeah. The nomenclature is straight marketing. So, I mean, end of the day, it's going to have to be a number that people go, oh, there's progress, right?
Yeah, true.
But end of the day, I mean, like CIG said last year that the numbers going up would basically just coincide with the quarterly releases back when they were like, okay, regardless of where we are, whatever is done will be pushed out that quarter. So by that token, yeah, I mean, it should probably be 3-2-1, honestly, because of the quarters we skip because of 318's big like delivery.
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
man, 318. Jeez,
Mm.
I
what a
mean,
beast.
there was lots in 3.18 that was great. There's lots in 3.19 that's great. But what I'm the only real dipstick like measurement that I'm putting Star Citizen 2 at the moment is stability, server stability. That's all I care
Mhm.
about. Like all this stuff is great, but if they just add stuff and the 30Ks, keep happening at the same or more, then I'm just like, yeah, okay, like But if that's the only thing I really am looking forward to, because it's if they keep just adding new stuff that sounds fun, but you keep getting interrupted
Well, yeah, you have to be
while
able to
you're
play the
doing
game
it.
to, play it, right? So
100%. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, look, I'm fine with them doing it this way and building off 318 as long as stability improves. If they keep
Mhm.
adding things directly off that code base and like that stability just isn't something that improves, it just makes it all the harder to make content for.
But how do
True.
you draw the line in the sand of where that stability can be for folks to be satisfied? Because it's different for every person, and every person says, "Well, we need it to be stable." And like, what if it's the difference between like 2 weeks of work on the cargo refactor for 3.20 and getting the Hull C and getting freight elevators, or 2 weeks of bug fixing on like the multi-tool to make something that's a terrible analogy because those people aren't working on the same stuff and everything.
Right.
But like, I just constantly think about how it's contextual. It depends on the situation, right?
In terms
I
of
think-
stability, no
development,
30Ks would be nice,
Well, yeah, no 30Ks would be great. That's
start.
At one point,
That's a
that
good one.
needs to be like that needs to be a thing at some point. Like it
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
unacceptable the amount of 30Ks we do go. But I guess the way you said, like you said, it's up to everyone where that kind of line is. But look, when it comes down to it, when you're playing it, like if you spent this amount of money on a contract, like okay, especially now, like salvaging contracts. All seems great, right? But there are missions in here that cost $150,000 buy-in. If I get a 30K, that's
Oh, yeah.
$150,000 gone.
Yep.
What?
Right?
That's an
So
insane
that's why-
buy-in.
Yeah.
They can add more and more as much as they want. But look, if it's not stable, then that's just gonna be a shit risk.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, what's the line? Because you could say, oh, well, the salvage missions are broken. And then for us, from our perspective, we're basically, okay, we're not going to play that. We'll do something else. From Star Citizen, from CIG's perspective, they basically have to give up testing on that area. And like, do they say to themselves, we don't care, we don't need that tested, leave it broken? Or do they say, hey, people are going to want to try this, let's fix it?
It's interesting.
I
Dad
mean-
was talking about the unacceptable 30Ks, and I'm like, in my brain just immediately went, "This is a man who never played 3.10.2."
And it is. It's true. But
I'm serious when this is not conjecture. This is not me like over exaggerating. This is not an exaggeration. I think it was
Mhm.
3.10.2. Somebody's going to correct me, but it was one of those patches. You could play for 20 to 30 minutes and it would have a 30K. You've never, for a whole patch, for like
Yeah.
a month, you
Yeah.
never played for more than 30 minutes of that 30K.
Yeah.
And there was very little to do by comparison. And so when I talked earlier, somebody, I think Tomato, you asked, what do you see different about the community now than before? We do expect more,
Yeah.
because if you had to go back and play 3.10 dead, you wouldn't play. You would just be like, I'm out.
Simply.
I can't. I don't want to do it. I expect a little bit better than that, which is not a
and
bad
I didn't
thing.
have the investment of the previously being locked in for all those years to have me kind of drive
Yeah.
to keep going.
Yeah.
But I also, just to add to that as well, like we've kind of people have said multiple times this time, like, look, I'm not a game developer and that, but I actually do work in game development. I don't like program myself in particular, but I work in I do Q&A and bug fixing and marketing and all that sort of stuff. So I do have opinions when it comes to that. In fact, I got my boss from a previous game who is a programmer and has worked with CryEngine before. And he was like a Elite Dangerous fan. I'm like, no, come over here. I really want you to play this because then I can use your brain and knowledge on stuff in particular. And I have got him into it, thankfully. But he's already doing exactly what I wanted to. He's like looking through the console to see like what's happening live on the servers when things are messing up. And he's explained to me about a lot of odd things. And you want to know something funny? You know how the elevators in
Don't talk to me about elevators.
in places have been the elevators have been pretty stable. You've got to say, compared to what they were They've been pretty.
I don't know, man.
stable
I've
for
been
the
keeping my
They used to have
past,
black
distance,
belt in
so-
judo. Now they're a bit more tame. You know.
They're a little bit more tame. Okay, you know the whole drama of being like, oh, we don't just want to have teleporters. We can't just teleport them. You know, it's all the object container boxing.
Mhm.
My developer boss, he's looking through the console command. He's like, this is interesting. I'm seeing all these people being teleported around, but they're not being teleported from one entry to an elevator to the exit of the teleporter. They're being teleported in like every little lots of little teleportations. I'm like,
Okay.
did they break their own golden rule of no teleporting, but they just kind of like fluffed it so it didn't look like they broke it? Because he's like, I can see in this console, I'm seeing like information of players on the other side of the system being teleported like multiple times like through there. I'm like, and he bets that's what's fucking happened. And he bets
Hey,
they're
I mean,
fuck, it's
I
not
will say
working.
this. I don't often agree with Dobranikin in the chat, but he said teleporting is the server placing them due to desync. I think he's right about that. When you see a bunch of spams of teleports, it's the server the server and the client communicating and trying to be like, okay, he's here, he's here, he's here. Like if you ever see an FPS, the desync is horrible. And so somebody's standing in place by their ship and then all of a sudden they're over here. That's going to be a listing of a teleport in the console.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I'm like,
there might be more than that. You might be right too, but it is also that.
I mean, that is pretty much kind of the same. It seems like maybe the reason why it is so much more reliable is because they just like leaned into that a
Well-
little more of going like, all right, we've got to constantly like pull up these like where are they? Where are they in this? All right, every single tick, we've got to communicate exactly where they are. And apparently, you can see where, like, say you're in like Hurston, you can see in Microtech, it's your data's going through your console of like where someone is on Microtech in their elevators at the moment. It's communicating that throughout the entire server. So I don't know if there's a limit on exactly how much they push that, but I find that sort of fascinating.
To
well,
play devil's advocate a tiny bit about the whole no teleport thing, I think it's just a matter of like players' perception, and if something feels like you're teleporting, then your immersion is broken.
guys,
But like
let's
when you die, you teleport, for instance.
let's be honest though. Like, is moving around nothing more than just teleporting at the atomic level?
Don't start with me, Tomato. It's too early for this crap. All right.
Man,
We're
that's
all
mentally
teleporting multiple times a day. Guys, that about wraps us up for today. I appreciate you all joining me for this talk. This was a great little look into what's going on with Star Citizen right now. 319 is in the PTU. Oh boy, I hope it comes out and it's stable. We could really use a stable patch to push us through the summer. Actually, you know what? Let's touch on that real quick. Just before we go, we've got like some good features that look like they're coming this year or could come this year. New missions, hull munching, hull C, vehicle tractor beams, new locations, all that jazz. 319 is a weird patch because it's coming out 1 month after 318 in May instead of at their normal time of July, August-ish. So
right.
what do you guys think is going to happen the rest of the year? How do you think they're going to roll out patches? Where do you think they're going to put it?
I think they're gonna heal and just continue going their quarterly release thing. So expect the next patch after this to be like, Q3 end of.
So you think they'll skip that July, August and go to October?
Possibly.
Any other theories?
Well, I mean, I think that they had a bit of an artificial deadline with Invictus. And so they were very much forced to kind of just keep it essentially all a PTU this entire time. But I kind of agree in that I think the rest of the year, other than getting the new system, and if they're still looking at server meshing, which is up in the air kind of at this point, for the rest of the year, I reckon it's just going to be stability and focusing on what is going to be that next sort of big patch in there. And I mean, hopefully that's what it is as well. I wouldn't want them to, especially now, like just don't rush anything at this point. As long as it's a game experience, like the start of this year has been so rough. Just give us some love for a little bit more of the year. Of
I don't know what that is
making
yet.
sure things, a little bit of play, a little bit of like stability here, but a little bit like, all right, we fix this. Keep working on fixes just to make things work, play better, so we can just have some good time with it.
I'll tell you
I
what.
think we deserve a break.
Yeah, they can only tease Pyro so much. So whatever it is, whatever patch that comes out, whatever number it is, CitizenCon has to deliver something this year.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise,
no,
it's
man,
gonna be
they've edged us with Salvage and the Banu Merchantman for like 9 years. So
They've got nothing left.
one can only be edged so much. Zero.
Yeah. So I think on what's going to happen this year, I think I kind of agree. 318, 319 stability, PES stability, figuring that out, because you put PES out and then all of a sudden it's like, why are there 500, bottles hanging around ever? Like, yeah, they got to figure out what gets cleaned up and what doesn't, where, and all that stuff. So that's all going to be development time. And I think that stability leading up to my honest guess is that they don't put out a big patch right before CitizenCon. I hope that they want the game to look as good as possible for CitizenCon, because it's going to be a big, like, there's going to be articles written about CitizenCon, right? Like, that's going to be a big thing. And then probably some big announcement for an end of year patch at CitizenCon. Just a guess. I don't know. Like, here's what we've been working on. And at the our end of the year patch, we're planning on doing this, and they get to show it off at CitizenCon or whatever. So there's probably going to be a lot of internal stuff that they might go off at CitizenCon and then hope to get it out before the end of the year. That's just my guess. But I know I tuned my copium tank up to about 12 psi.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I'm listening to you over here slowly, like injecting syringes of copium into my butt, getting ready to answer.
Too rational. Yeah.
Like, I think I'm kind of on board with you. I think instead of doing the end of year patch being big, I'm hoping at least that they'll finish CitizenCon, show us that demo, obviously make sure to soak in all of the, oh yeah, we're not going to get this for years, breathe it in. Yeah. And then just be like, yeah, it's coming out next week. Because they never get to do that.
They did that one time with an ISC where they were like at the end. No, it was Star Citizen Live. Because I don't remember which patch it was, like 314 or something like that. They were like, and just so you guys know, 314 is playable right now. Like, we're pushing it to the servers right now. And it was the coolest thing ever that they were able to do it. And I think the whatever patch it was played pretty well too.
I'd like them to be able to do that, and then just hit us with like a nice polishing patch at the end of the year to make sure that holiday break is like smooth.
Okay, my super hyper turbo copium prediction for CitizenCon this year.
Turbo.
Yeah, it's like, how you have those med pens, like the red ones. Well, this one is like size 5. All right, and it's a suppository, but like, here it goes. So it's an LA CitizenCon, right? You know who lives in LA?
Oh, gosh.
All the Squadron 42 actors. Squadron 42 release day or release. Watch this space. I expect my check in the mail if I'm right.
That's a lot of copium.
It's a lot of copium. What did I say? Size 5 up your butt.
I'm gonna need some extra lube for that one.
That's a good luck, man.
Yeah.
I hope for the best. Honestly, it'd be great if you were right.
Some of you guys will know this, but in Star Marine, if you re-equip stuff on your character, for some reason it gets huge. And you can actually make med pens that are like 5 feet tall. Which that's the first thing I thought of when you said that, was these giant med pens in Star Marine.
Well,
there you go.
Honestly, I think that's a good note to sign off on. All right. I think we'll wrap things up. Before actually we go, though, I'm going to give you one more time to tell everybody where they can find you, so that, at the beginning we did it just because of your lovely faces and Dedleader's amazing picture, but now they've gotten to hear your amazing personalities. So tell everybody where they can go find those and get out of here. Don't actually get out of here, though, guys. I'm going to keep streaming after this. Yeah.
Who's going first?
XeroState, you go ahead.
I should have just gone, I guess. All right. So I'm XeroState. Call me Zero. I stream on Twitch often and have some YouTube videos. Don't put on a ton of stuff, but the YouTube's there. And I post dumb stuff on Twitter. It's all the same name. You find me wherever. Say hi in game if you see me there. There you go.
Dumb stuff on Twitter, man. Tradition. Dedleader, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Dedleader. You can just find me on YouTube. I was gonna stream and stuff, but it's way too stressful. And you can usually get a video out of me like maybe once or twice a week, and I try to make them fun. So, yo.
Thank you for joining me, Dad. And Myre.
I'm always down.
Hi, my name is Myre. I'm a voice actor and Star Citizen streamer. I have a YouTube channel at youtube.com/Myre and also a Twitch channel with the same name. And yeah, that's about me. I'll see you there or not.
All right. Short and sweet. I like it. And Myre, you recently got had a pretty big moment in your voice acting career,
I
right?
was just gonna say that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got signed with an agent, so I've got a
Yeah.
few auditions actually
Hey.
this week. It's been pretty interesting. Who knows? Maybe Myre Star Citizen someday.
Yo, congratulations, dude. That'd be a
Thank you,
cool mission
appreciate it.
giver. Yo,
Dude, I'm gonna
this
meet the Myre NPC in Star Citizen someday, and I'm gonna take a giant med pen and just
Copium.
because of this conversation.
If you haven't already, I'm gonna put you on blast. Go check out this dude's reel on Twitter, wherever you can find it, because amazing voices, dude. Like,
Oh, dude.
honestly, it's really freaking cool hearing the different voices and just being like, oh, it's the same person. Okay, awesome. But anyways, thank you, all three of you, for joining me today. This was a great talk, and I hope all of you who are listening got to learn something new today, got to get a new perspective maybe, or get your own reinvigorated. You know, that echo chamber stays strong. This, of course, is ad-free on audio platforms, but if you want, you can watch it on YouTube, and supporters get to see us live here. Now, we are all done for this week, and I will see you in next month's episode. But for anybody who is here live, I will be continuing this stream. We're going to jump into 319 PTU and go check out some Jump Town. So I'm going to head out with these guys, take about a 5-minute breather, and then we'll get right back to the stream. But thanks again, everybody, for joining. This was a fantastic little show. I had a lot of fun. Guys, I hope you have a good weekend.